Ay. Welcome back to the Truthwire. What is going on up here? Welcome back to the Truthwire. It is the Convo couch, kind of morphed and created and kind of becoming something else. Just the new faces, new people, collaborations, the whole 9 yards. I am your host, Craig Poster Jardula. My co-host, Fiorella Isabel, is in the wings coming on in. And, of course, Matt Weinglass is here today from the Homeless Left. We kind of do all these collaborations, so we figured we would just collab it on up. Let's bring in Fiorella Isabel. She is here with us. Fam, where you at? There you are.
Here.
I don't know. I'm feeling a little giddy today. I hope you guys are happy that 2024 is finally over. What a year, guys. Please, if you have any thoughts on 2024, fam, why don't you go on first and tell us what you think about it? Are you glad it's over or not?
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I don't think 2025 is going to get any easier. It started out with a bang already based on the things we're going to be talking about. So, I unfortunately, after Syria, have an extremely, I would say, not negative, but a far more realistic perspective as to what can happen at any moment. And for me, all bets are off now that's happened. And I think what we're seeing right now with the MAGA infighting and all of these, what I would call actual psychological operations, which is crazy because this is the anniversary of one of the largest ones that we witnessed, that we attended. and it's kind of crazy how 4 years ago even we were at a level where I thought, man, it can't get any crazier than this. You know, you have COVID, you have the January 6th stuff, you have all of these things happening domestically in the US. And now fast forward to now 2025, it's gotten crazier. So honestly, I'm done having this line of oh, it can't get any worse. I think it can. I think it can get any much crazier. And what Elon Musk is doing as well with Twitter, which we haven't even had time to, we probably won't have time to talk about today, is insane. And I think it's predictable. Many of us said that this was where we were headed, but it does kind of slap this down this idea that it is a free speech platform that many people believed. And look, even when we're on it right now, it's better than YouTube in many ways, but it's now there's some sort of thing going on where there's more censorship coming, and I knew it wouldn't last. And I think we've all been ready for that moment. So here's to 2025, my very optimistic point of view.
Yeah, that was doom and gloom, but I hear you. I mean, there's world wars that could happen, countries that can be invaded, countries that we're close to. Obviously, we're still waiting on figuring out what's going on if we are going to Venezuela. We are supposed to. Who knows? But we'll be able to go check it out. And we'll obviously, you know, if one of us goes and the other doesn't, I'll feel it out and see what's going on. But we'll have to pay attention to Venezuela, Cuba, and I think Nicaragua more than anything because, like you started off your thing. Syria, right? When Syria falls and everybody's like, whoa, what's going on? But, you know, I mean, fam, I think you've done a great job of explaining on how Russia is not an ideologically driven country, right? It's not a communist country. It is actually a free market. I don't want to say free market capitalism. It has some social entities. It's like a mixed economy, but it's not what a lot of people think. It's not a bunch of rose-colored glasses and the fall of Syria. You know, fam, you did mention, and I want to get Matt's opinion real quick on this, on the on the Trump civil war of sort is what I called it. You said infighting, but there was a little bit of civil war. Matt, don't you think that that's a good thing? That, you know, there are people within his base, and these people, I surely don't agree necessarily with Laura Loomer on her Zionism and a lot of other things, and Nick Fuentes, but those people were there to speak up and say, wait a second, this is not what you promised us, Donald Trump. Your thoughts on that? Isn't it a good thing?
It is. I think any sort of challenging of the people you support, the people you've invested in, whatever it is, votes, time, money, attention, you put a lot of ego and pride into this. And as we see on the other side, on the left, they're far, far, far from even having the ability to question or challenge the thing that they invested in. So of course, yes, it's great to see that type of challenge because it puts people, you know, puts the Trump in check in a way where he has to kind of, you know, either avoid conversations altogether or meet these challenges from people that are supporting him. So we wish we saw more of that on the other side. But again, we're starting this new year off. Not much to celebrate, I'd say, other than the fact that the people like us, like you guys, and people watching us, we're getting better, we're getting smarter, we're getting wiser from day to day with how we approach these issues as they come up. The red flags we're seeing earlier than later. So we're getting wiser about it all. It's just so hard. It's disheartening to see other people haven't woken up yet, that they continue to fall for the propaganda and the divide. And they're not having these conversations at all. They're just saying, shut up, get in line. And that's infuriating to see at this point. Because like Fiorella, you said, the COVID stuff and the J6, it's like everything is right in front of your faces. And if you're not having these conversations now at the beginning of this year of 2025, then I don't want to say there's no hope for you, but we have to be okay with the fact that we're not going to reach everyone. And we just have to be better and smarter and wiser as we go into this next year right now.
It's funny, Matt, you mentioned the fact that like we wish we would see that on the left. Me and fam know we've been with the activist on the left. Yeah, there's no infighting. They just cancel you. Get out.
Yeah.
Leave. And you're walking out the door. But listen, I think there are some positive things to go on as far as from a personal point of view. You know, everybody here, I was really excited to do this show today with you two handsome and beautiful people, and that one guy behind the curtain there, Mr. Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. It's going to be a very interesting year moving forward. There's going to be a lot of great traveling going on, things to see, great food to eat. ways that we can all get healthier with our body and our minds. Because like you said, we're wiser. So I think that no matter what's going on, we have to do what Jason Burmis told me a long time ago when he started telling me about Elon Musk back in the days and everybody else was talking about the World Economic Forum and them considering us useless eaters. We just got to have chicken wings and beer and just be as human as possible. Love each other, speak what's going on. And we need you all there in the chats. I see a lot of you reaching out, saying hi, and all these things that are great. If you're on Twitter, please go to the Truthwire YouTube. We're dancing around the censorship, right? I mean, my Lord, I can't even find out how our appeal from almost a year ago. It's still up there. It says we'll get back to you in a couple months, and they're trying to say there's something wrong with our AdSense. They're never going to allow us to do what we want to do, guys. And censor us. They're going to censor us the whole time. So we need your help. We need you to share all the links. Go off to all the sites. Matt Weinglass, the Homeless Left on Rumble. Please go over there. Fiorella does still have a Rumble. Both Matt and Fiorella last year, guys, without any rhyme or reason, had their YouTubes taken down. Don't tell me that censorship is going away. And that's the one thing that I really can't stand. It feels like everything that YouTube has done, that Twitter has done before, and what they're doing now. They're operating with no transparency, and they've gotten away with censorship in the US of A. Remember, that's what our forefathers told us, our Uncle Joe. Freedom of speech in the United States, we got it. Well, where's it at? Because we're still dancing around it. I just found this channel from Fee on X, so I just subbed. Cheers. Thank you so much, Zip Zap. Thank you to all those other people. I see Miguel in the chat. I see Calculus. Happy New Year's, everybody. Let's rock and roll. Let's dive right into it, guys. We're going to talk about what's going on with Donald Trump because I think a lot of us knew this was going to happen. I know we like to point out the positive things. We call balls and strikes when he says something good, when he does something good. But I think we have to really separate the rhetoric from policy moving forward because everything that's happened right now, and we're going to call about, we talk about this all the time. We call balls and strikes. We're somewhat political atheist of sorts, right? We don't subscribe to one team. We call the situation like it is. And I think a lot of us thought that Donald Trump, we saw him for what he was, and he wasn't the answer. He's not an outsider. He's going to get in line. And the thing that's so surprising is that these things that have happened, they've happened before he's even stepped into office. I mean, it's January 6th today, right? And this guy's already got 4 strikes on it. I'm serious strikes. And there's a lot of things that it's that song by the CNC Music Factory. Things that make you go, right? And there was a little civil war over the weekend. But let's talk about the first strike because Fiorella, you put up a tweet. This is at the end of November where he was yelling about, I'm so many lives are lost, so many lives. I want the killing to stop. It just got to stop. But then he goes and he appoints Keith Kellogg, General Keith Kellogg, as a special envoy to Ukraine, which is saying the opposite of exactly what you've been preaching this whole time. Let's take a look over here at what Keith Kellogg said. Fam, you can read your tweet and then we'll show the video and give us a little insight to what you think.
So I said Trump's newly appointed Russia-Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg says that Russia's committing a genocide in Ukraine targeting civilians and that the U.S. should continue supplying equipment to Kiev, which has a shot at winning. Peace in Ukraine with Trump, ? Delusional. So yeah, as you said, this was back in November, right? And I just got to point something out in terms of where we are. There was so much hope by so many in voting for Donald Trump to end this war in Ukraine. And there's still a possibility that might happen because Donald Trump needs a win. He needs to come in after January 20th and show that what he ran on, he will deliver. This was one of the biggest things for Republicans in terms of money and government spending and in terms of just the support in contrasting the Biden administration's wasteful wars and the money to Zelensky that's been endless, right? And so Trump still needs that. However, what has been propositioned by the Trump administration is foreign troops, and also these are peacekeeping foreign troops. We know what that means, right? And then also delaying Ukraine's eventual accession into NATO by 20 years or however. And Russia isn't going to jump in on that. They're not going to go for it. Lavrov has already said that's not going to happen. Putin has already said we need these security guarantees. But aside from all that, the United States and NATO have already broken all of these security guarantees when they were there anyway. So the question is going to remain as to what Russia agrees to. And again, has been so much speculation after Syria as to what that could potentially be. So just wanted to point that out where we're at.
Why don't we play the video and get Matt's opinion about what's going on? And there's two videos here, right? So one that just shows you his mindset, and very much just like Mike Johnson, who was so different before he got the speaker role, then he got the speaker role. But this is Keith Kellogg, and we got two quick videos, and this is him talking about what's going on in Ukraine, Russia.
Bottom line, the Ukrainians want to fight. They don't want U.S. troops. They don't want NATO troops. All they want is equipment, and they're going to fight this to the end. It's very clear to them that this is a very aggressive Russia move. It's targeted on civilians. It's targeted on infrastructure. You know, we went out pretty far to the northeast, and we saw some absolute incredible destruction out there by the Russians. And it was targeted on infrastructure. It was targeted on hospitals. It was targeted on schools. In fact, the mayor of Kyiv told us later that this is genocide. And I think when we look at what's going to happen over there, I believe it's very important we get them the equipment to fight, because I think now we're right on the cusp. And I think it's going to come out probably in just a couple of months when we get into the spring, into the summer, and then into the fall. This is going to be a fight to the end. The Ukrainians are not going to negotiate. They have no intention to negotiate. They want to eject Russian forces from Ukraine. I don't care if it's a Donbass. I don't care if it's Crimea. And they're committed to it. And I talked to a lot of government officials, military officials, civilians that are out there. It's a very committed nation. If anybody doubts their loyalty to Ukraine, they're badly mistaken. And again, as I said, I think it's a fight to the finish.
Well, you've been right along the way here. In general, the only thing is, if they're adamant about not giving up an inch of land or letting the Russians have an inch of land, Vladimir Putin is equally adamant about unleashing holy hell on civilians. He's not going anywhere. What's the end game here?
Yeah, here's what I think the end game is, Neil. I think evicting the Russians from Ukraine, I think they've got the capacity to do it, the Ukrainians, with their fighting spirit, as long as we give them the kit, because I think they've got the Russians at least at a stalemate and possibly on their heels. And I think why this is important geostrategically. If the Ukrainians can defeat Russia in the field and eject them from the Donbass or Crimea, Putin falls. And it changes Europe for a generation to come. People need to realize Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe. I mean, I saw that just driving it. And they're very committed to freedom and democracy. They recognize they've got some issues with things that have happened in the past, with illegal activities going on. They understand that. They're trying to correct it. But their military is a fighting military. I saw it firsthand. We got pretty darn close to the area where what they call the zero line is, which is what we used to call the line of contact. And there's no doubt in my mind that they're committed to this fight and fight to the end. So one of these two sides is going to win. I don't think there's going to be anything to negotiate. I don't think there's going to be any negotiations, despite what people want to talk about. Zelensky's not going to do it, and neither's Putin.
So, Matt, there's some things that were said there that just I know, and I can see Fam, she's turning redder than she's so angry than the wall behind her and stuff like that. It's 2 G's at the end too, Jayme, for Kellogg. My bad. But I mean the language here. Oh, that's on the cusp. The other video we don't have to play because he pretty much just says that Russia's lost 400,000, 500,000 troops, and Ukraine's only lost 100,000. It's quite the opposite of what's being said. Now, I don't know about you, but we don't have to play it. It's okay. I don't know about you, but to me, this sounds like language in which you're trying to convince the American public that we can keep fighting. They're on the cusp. All we have to do is give them the weapons they need. This is the opposite to what Donald Trump was saying. This is the opposite to what a lot of libertarians were using to justify the vote for him, Matt.
Yeah, this is the manipulation process. This is what you do. You go on Fox, you rile up this right-wing base to say that we have to go in, we have to double this down. This is the Lindsey Graham approach. This is, down to the last Ukrainian, fighting spirit. All this language is preset. It's predetermined. Do they know? Does he know he's lying right there? I don't think it matters to him. I think that they have a playbook throughout this process, where just a few more months, we got Putin on his heels. Putin's a madman. He's determined to destroy the entire all of Ukraine. So this has all been set up in advance. Now, when Trump goes and assigns him to this envoy, you know what you said earlier, Craig. This gets a lot of Trump voters very nervous, and I've talked to a lot of Trump voters that voted for him specifically for this issue, for ending Ukraine war. And they're still, look, I feel bad for them. They went all in on this. They said, we have to have one less World War III option on the table. We have to get Trump in there. He will do this overnight. He will stop the funding. How are you going to do that with this envoy in there that is literally saying no negotiations and lying about Putin not wanting to negotiate? I mean, everything was on the table. We understood that there was a deal in place right away, like in March of 2022. Everybody knew it. Everybody knows Boris Johnson went there, destroyed that deal on purpose. So we know the timeline. So we know they're lying about this. How do you maneuver around this? I guess the only way you can do it, and I've heard Trump voters say this, they go, look, he has to put this guy in there. He has to put Kellogg in there. He's not going to have real power. He's not going to have real ability. This is
60 chess.
Yeah, exactly. 60 chess. This is just for looks, right? But he really does have the 60 just plan. And that's how you justify this. But this has to make people afraid that understand that this is not a logistical way that this can work. This is not a sustainable approach to anything like this. It's so dangerous. It's so irresponsible. And we all have to be nervous right now about this guy going in there.
Yeah. Fam, we heard this before, right? I've been talking about this for quite some time. This peace through strength mentality, right? Oh, he's got to put Clark Kellogg in there, or Keith Kellogg. I'm sorry. He's got to put General Keith Kellogg in there. It's like what he did with Bolton. You have to have a wild dog there to force the other side to negotiate. And also, too, finally, before I get your last opinions on this strike one, because we're going to go over strike 2 and 3, because strike 2 is kind of very similar to strike 3. But oh my God, Obama, right? Like, how can we fall for Donald Trump and stuff like that? How can we see this coming? Matt said they went all in on this. Well, some of us were screaming that we had the most perfect candidate in the world who was bringing hope and change. And what did he do? He cowed down to the banks. He cowed down to the military-industrial complex. To me, this seems like a lot of the Obama situation happening again. And there's a lot of, we told you so. Go ahead, fam.
I mean, it's ridiculous because even going forward now, we're seeing a couple things. One of them I tweeted about Zelensky being interviewed by this podcaster, and he basically said, oh yeah, so we're basically done receiving these gifts. We don't need gifts from the United States. We're going to pay for these weapons, he said. And then he said that they're going to pay for these weapons with the stolen Russian assets. He didn't say stolen, but he did say the Russian money that somehow belongs to them. So Ukraine is going to take these stolen Russian assets and they're going to continue paying. They're going to start paying for the money that they're given, for the weapons that they're given in this way. So Zelensky's out there trying to continue this really just fruitless PR about how Ukraine is going to continue this. Meanwhile, Russia actually just conquered one of the most pivotal, they would say they liberated, right? But they conquered one of the most pivotal areas that Ukraine had, and it's called the Kurahovo, and it was a stronghold of Ukraine, and it's been built up and fortified by NATO for the last 10 years, and it had underground communication, it had all this stuff, and now Russia conquered it. But not only did they actually liberate it, but they actually destroyed more than 80% of Ukraine's forces there. So we're talking about numbers, right? And so what you saw Kellogg do is completely, as you said, Pasta, switch the numbers. And you can see it here too. And in the information that's coming out of there is this very huge capture of Kurahovo disrupts the Ukrainian logistics in Donetsk, and it's going to make it harder for the Russians for the Ukrainians to continue this fight. So the Russians are just going to continue advancing And that's pretty much what we've been seeing throughout. So it is ridiculous for Trump to appoint somebody like that. But at the same time, it's predictable. And I don't think there's a 5D chess. I do think that Trump has to show that, we're going to force Putin to do this. We're gonna put out a deal, and they better take it because we're America. That's kind of his policy, in my opinion.
It's not going to work. I don't think anybody who was paying attention to this war the whole time, this invasion or this military operations, any way you want to call it, it's a war. So many people have died. But anybody who's knowing anything knew that the Russians have not used their full force, their full might yet. And, like people like Scott Ritter and others, what's his name? Whatever. The other general, I forget his name. I can't remember it. He's one of my favorites. McGregor would talk about the fact that, Ukrainians are getting slaughtered. And you can see them in the streets just grabbing young people and throwing them and taking them to the front line. Strike 2 and 3 is kind of interesting because strike 2 has to do with the fact that they had this whole situation with the visas. But let's put this up there. This is Thomas Massey, right, who I don't think we'll be able to get to it today. You can go ahead and put it up, Jayme. The same Republicans complaining about rhinos, right? No, you had the right one. The same Republicans complaining about rhinos. Put the picture up of Massey so we can see the badge. Nominate Mike Johnson for speaker. You know what I'm saying? And this is the thing, like everybody was talking about, Mike Johnson's been a disaster. He was against the FISA court warrants but until he got in, then he was for them. He was against arming Ukraine before he got in. Now he's for it. And you can see in the tweet now we can go to real quickly, Jayme. It says right here, and this is great what that person put up there. Trump supports this crap. He wants all this money for Ukraine. He supported it in last April. And fam, you kind of talked about it like, oh, they're going to pay it back. It's just going to be a loan. I don't know where people get this mentality like, oh, the war's okay to go on as long as it's a loan. NATO's is allowed to exist as long as they pay their fair share. That's not what we want. We want the killing and the empire and the agitating of Russia on their border to stop. We don't want to get into a world war. He also wants more H-1B and your job. If you're in tech, you're damned. And it says the deep state wins again. This is by Judy Morris. Forget about MAGA, Maha, and Doge. I mean, the Doge thing is just hysterical. The spending will continue. The tyranny will continue under Speaker Mike Johnson. And there will be no meaningful reform to the way D.C., the District of Crime, operates. The military-industrial complex, the AIC, I don't know if they meant AIPAC, Uniparty, rhinos, and evil national security state are still in control. Johnson and McConnell, puppet Senate Majority Leader Thune, will squash any potential good they could have resulted from November 5th, meaning the election itself. And I have this right here. Look at the first part I put over here. I want to talk a little bit about the visas because this is something that really got out of hand. Poor Elon Musk, fam. He got all agitated and screaming. He was actually cursing at somebody online. But we have the whole visa situation. This is Donald Trump talking about the visas back, I believe, in 2015 or in 2016. Listen to what he had to say about HB1 visas.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it. Well, first of all, I think, and I
now that's it. Now I don't think get the second one ready because we're going to show him just the other day. Now listen, I'm not one of those people who, especially with the populist right, who thinks that immigration is the biggest problem, right? Immigrant crime, they're coming to take your jobs. But that's what Donald Trump's rhetoric has been since he started running in 2015. It's the border. That's where their problems are. We got to close the border. They're taking away jobs. This is him on New Year's Eve talking about the visas. Listen to this.
Why did you change your mind on H-1B visas?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. We need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your position.
I love the visas, fam. Don't you love the visas? They're good. They're necessary. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's he's clearly completely doing a 180. And the thing is, for me, it's like it's not a yes or no on that. For me, it's like it depends on what we're talking about, on what exactly you're doing. But for his base, I mean, if I was a Trump supporter, I would feel entirely betrayed, because this is one of the things they have been most passionate about, creating American jobs for Americans. And if they're going to bring in all these foreigners, what exactly is going on? And so their wheels are turning, and they're like, what exactly is going on? Now, there are people, as we said, that are going to say, well, he has to say this because he has a plan of later doing something against the border crisis, and he's gonna do all these things. But the reality is, Donald Trump, in my opinion, his role, because he has a role, he's not outside of the deep state. He is clearly in it and has been. And that is why he was allowed to win, because this time around, there was no opposition to that. There was nothing, he was allowed to win. And I think what we're seeing here is the price of that, that he's going to go and do exactly as what his role is, which is to essentially make himself look like the better alternative to the Democratic Party, but continue the same type of policies that they actually implemented. Because if we recall who implemented, for example, the Muslim ban, that was Barack Obama. And Trump, when we talk about the kids in cages, he continued a lot of these policies that the Obama administration had laid out. And that's Trump's role. And I think we're going to see that pendulum swing to the other side, because the liberals are again going to somehow scream about Donald Trump. And this is why we never get out of this. And yet people are duped time and time again to think that Donald Trump is something different. He isn't an outsider, and neither was RFK. They've all been completely swallowed up. I think Trump had the potential to be an outsider, had the potential to step outside of the political elite. But if we look at who his family is and who they're rubbing shoulders with, I mean, there's no question. It's all part of the swamp itself.
Matt, there's something that was said over the weekend with this MAGA civil war, because it turned into some infighting, right? And let's put this up real quick here. This is a little chart. People like Laura Loomer, people like Jack Posobiec, Nick Fuentes, Stu Peters, you can see them on the left. They became Team USA. Leandra Johnny, is that her name? She's going to get mad at me for it because I met her too in Texas. She was on the left. USA. What's that?
Leonarda.
Yeah, Leonarda. I should get the Italian name. I get Leonardo Johnny, and she's crazy. She's the one who retweeted this. And you can see on the right, you got Alex Jones, who's sticking up for Elon no matter what. Fam's favorite Benny Johnson, Tim Cast, Patrick Bet-David, the Hodge twins, Ian Miles Chong. These guys went at it online. They were going back and forth with each other. Mindy Robinson is down there, Matt. You're going to have to stick up for her, because Team Elon, wow. I mean, you're supposed to be into the Psyops, and you don't see the biggest Psyops of all. Doesn't people realize that Team Elon, that he came from DARPA and he made all his money on subsidies as a defense contractor? Starlink isn't for you to get your internet on. It's for them to also control the drones for warfare. And he's got a lot of other things to answer for. But, the one thing I want to concentrate on more than anything else is that Vivek was for the visas too as well. And Vivek did make a point. There are some people out there, Matt, that would say a college degree today is equivalent to a high school degree 40, 50 years ago when our parents went to school. It's kind of what George Carlin say. There's a reason why education is broken, and there's a reason it will never be fixed, because there's no way the government and the ruling class is going to want a group of informed citizens who can understand what's going on. They want people just smart enough to push the brooms and the buttons, but not get all mad and fight back in a way because they can understand how they're being screwed. Is there something to that, as far as we are not is the way we used to be? In other words, we're not as intelligent of a society. We're not as well educated as we were before, and we're definitely not taught to think for ourselves. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Now, do we see, is Steve Bannon on one of these sides?
Steve Bannon is Team USA.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So
he went after Elon hard.
Okay. Yeah. No. And that's good. I like, because you're talking about what's happening to the American educated American worker, potential someone who's going to be contributing to society. We want to understand, like you said, that what is happening. This is on purpose. This is on purpose to keep people down, keep a college degree as something does not have any value. This is the side you want to be shouting, screaming from. And I wish Mindy Robinson was on the right side on this one, but you guys, me, the people watching right now, we can kind of step back from both of these teams and see this fight's important right now. We have to understand where the psyop is, and we have to go back those two clips you showed of Trump. I got to say, like, if I'm a body language expert, I would say this is a guy in this latest clip, a New Year's clip. He's somebody who is now captured. So we have to call this out. This 180 he's done. This is not somebody who came in as an outsider. He is now a full-blown politician. So this infighting is good. I like it, but when we look at it from the outside, we say there really is nobody to champion here. The only thing clear I heard was when Steve Bannon said this. He said, we have to, whatever we got to do, we got to understand that our workers, our educated people here are not getting the opportunity. I don't care where you're coming from. We're all kind of screwed right now, and it seems to be on purpose. So who is going to champion this message in power? Who is it going to be? It's not Elon. Trump is captured. I don't know. It's very dire. But again, I think having this infighting is important. And we got to get to the bottom of this. What happened to Trump in the last 8 years? It's incredible. Just the body language I'm seeing of him, like completely shifting. He's avoiding these questions. Whereas back in 2015, he was ready to call this out. He was ready to say, hey, these rules are screwed. It's been benefiting me as a businessman, but it's hurting the worker. Isn't that what got him in the first time? I think that's what got him in. He was calling out the corrupt system that he wanted to come in and do something about. Now it doesn't look like it looks like we're completely screwed. He was handpicked by the deep state, and now we're watching this kind of unfold in real time. And the American worker is the screwed one in the scenario. They're the sucker in this whole.
And he didn't present any solution for the problem that's there. It's just we're going to keep going along. We need competent people coming in. If you look at the H-1B visas, I mean, there's strippers that got jobs, cooks, waiters, restaurant workers. Not really necessary for that field. It's just so that the employer can take advantage of an employee. And that employee is pretty much a slave, because if they complain, they get sent back. The visa's pulled and it's back. So they have to shut their mouths and do what's going on. It's completely nefarious. But if you really want to talk about, what he used to be, not that he was just for the American worker, it was him against the machine. He was the outsider. He was against, remember, the deep state this, the deep state that. I said this before. He's not that same candidate that would talk about the donors in the deep state. Here's Fiorella's tweet. You want to talk about really capitulating now? I would say at the heart and soul of the deep state is the CIA. Fam, what do you got here for us with this tweet? Let's read Donald Trump's tweet first and then yours after.
Yeah, you read Donald Trump's tweet because you can do the Trump voice.
Our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world. This is what happens when you have open borders with weak, ineffective, and virtually non-existing leadership. The DOJ, the FBI, and the Democratic state and local prosecutors have done their job. They are incompetent and corrupt, having spent all their waking hours unlawfully attacking their political opponent, me, rather than focusing on protecting Americans from the outside and inside violent scum that has infiltrated all aspects of our government and our nation itself. Scroll up a little bit, Jayme. Democrats should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen to our country. Here's where it gets crazy. Oh, no. The CIA must get involved now before it's too late. The USA is breaking down. A violent erosion of safety, national security, and democracy is taking place all over our nation. Only strength and powerful leadership will stop. See you on January 20th. Make America great again.
So
your response.
I just said something.
please, yeah.
I just said, I'm going to have fun watching all the Trump supporters sell out libertarians and alt media twist their way out of Trump saying we need the CIA while he's supposed to take on the deep state, which is AKA the literal CIA, because that's what it is. That's what the deep state is. So I don't understand how you can twist that one around at all. How do you like say that this is what he's supposed to say? He believes in the CIA, or at least he's telling people now that they need that. Whereas before, as Pasta said in 2016, he ran against the deep state. He ran against NAFTA. He ran against these policies that would put American workers last. That's why he got some of the votes that went to Bernie Sanders in the general election after he got cheated by Hillary Clinton. So that's why. And now what you're seeing is, and I think my favorite part of what he said was this part, that you could literally take it out of any sort of Democrat. You could take it from Kamala Harris, from Hillary Clinton, where he says the U.S. is breaking down a violent erosion of safety, national security, and democracy. That is the language of the actual Democrat, neoliberals, globalists, whatever you want to call them. That's, the name that everybody's throwing around. But it's essentially what the NATO establishment has been talking about: giving democracy everywhere, protecting our national security. He is echoing the words of the State Department of the Biden administration. So what exactly is different from Donald Trump now than Joe Biden? I think what we're going to see is not too much is different.
Yeah. I think we still see Bilderberg calling shots. People are going off there. Stuff coming out of Davos. When you talk about the globalists, it's at the end of the day. I mean, Israel, how many of the shots Miriam Adelson gave, how much to Donald Trump? Close to 300 million at this point. It's ridiculous. And he also said in that same penguin suit, they better release the hostages. They better release the hostages. And Gerald Celente, our good friend, made a tweet. He says, he's going to wipe them off the map if he can, right? Go MAGA, being very facetious. I mean, this is going to get really, really bad. And it just seems like they're lining up for other wars. And I think we can kind of explain that too as well. Look, Tulsi Gabbard is somebody I'm going to give a lot of criticism towards, right? So she hasn't been the most pro-Israel person out there, right? There's a picture with her and Shmuley out there, but she's done the flip side of the coin. She's provided the avenue in which they're going to use to justify these wars. She said Islamicists are the greatest threat to Americans out here. That's what's going to be used as she's going to be head of the CNI, because I believe she's going to get confirmed. I don't think that Kennedy is going to get confirmed, but I believe she will. But it seems like everything that's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, and even during the campaign, they tried to kill me. I ran. They're mad that I killed Soleimani. They want to kill me. I mean, they are setting us up for just different wars, nightmare situations. Matt, wrap it on up so we can get to the next section.
Yeah, you mentioned Kennedy not getting in. I was hopeful he would, but after this tweet, I mean, he must be fuming reading this. He said publicly, the CIA killed my uncle. The fact that Trump he got on that stage and says we're doing this together, make America healthy again, all this stuff. But the CIA was the thing. Like, look, I get the whole we're not going to mention Israel and Palestine are the most pampered people on the planet. We'll never forgive him for that. But the fact that Trump is embracing the CIA with this tweet kind of says, Kennedy, this is about the end of the line for you right now. And I can see that's the turn that's happening right now. There's no way you can align him right now with what's going forward with this garbage, which is, like Fee said, it's the playbook right out of the Democratic neoliberal side as well. So it's all they're all in on together. They're all captured. It's all one big scam. I feel bad for Trump right now, who believed that something was going to happen out of this.
Matt, he was the Charlton, right? He was the one going to be setting it up. Like, he was going to make America healthy again, all this other BS that like Americans like, and they put their eyes on, because Donald Trump, whoever's pulling the strings behind them, they understood what that MAGA base was. Those were the people who were upset with Donald Trump for his decisions when it came to COVID and whatnot. But I mean, listen, put your seatbelts on. In a way, fam, I'm kind of happy that it happened right now. I mean, he hasn't even gotten in, and he's already shown his true ass right now, his true colors. I wonder how much buyer's remorse. I think on your tweet, the sellout libertarians, they're still trying to go along with this like it's okay. Like, dude, you just supported a Zionist. You just supported, you know what I'm saying? Ron Paul must be throwing up sometimes thinking about what you did. Close this out. Let's get to the next section.
Well, I just want to get to the next section, but I will say, Matt, that Kennedy did at one point, because one of his family members has worked in the CIA, he did say that there are people trying to do a good job. So I don't know if he will be fully out. If he isn't out, he'll have to compromise. That is one of the good things about Kennedy, his view of making the U.S. healthier, you know, less overweight, less just that aspect of it, of focus on the medical and health eating habits is actually good. But I don't think that he's going to have much power to do much, because there are too many powerful agencies that are there. And at the end of the day, you know, this is going to be the most Zionist administration that we have seen. And the prerequisite, obviously, to be part of the Trump administration was to bow your head down and pray to the Israeli state and or the Israeli project, I should say, and to embrace Israel, because every single one of Trump's appointees is a Zionist, every single one of them.
Deeply committed.
I think what we're going to see is a shift towards the Middle East, as Pasta mentioned, Iran, but we're also going to see a shift towards Latin America. And this is how it's going to start. Going into section 2, we're seeing the focus be on the ISIS terrorists that are coming in, that are bringing their weapons in through the border, right? And that is essentially going to push for more war and allow the expansion of the surveillance state. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's start with the Fort Bragg military operations guy who somehow happened to love Allah, who happened to be an ISIS terrorist just because a woman in Lululemon attire decided to come in and film something that was the equivalent of the IDF filming the Hamas tunnels. It was so fake, and we're going to talk about that. But let's go back to the beginning, because I haven't talked about this yet. How this happened, right? We have Sam Sud-Din Jabbar, who was the suspect in what the media immediately labeled an ISIS-induced terrorist attack because he had a flag, an ISIS flag, on his truck. Number one, that is just odd. And he was in New Orleans, and that left 10 people dead. The details are he rented an Airbnb, and this is where we'll see it later. And he admitted in this video to having a government, military background, and worked for Deloitte, one of the largest U.S. government contractors. And I did a whole tweet on this, and I want us to hear what he said in that video, Jayme. And then, look, first, Jayme, can we hear what he said on this video, and then I'll go down quickly.
I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist in IT. I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston.
So
and
then, so this is the video. If you can just show it, I'll talk through it, because this is where he took his truck and ran through a crowd of people celebrating in the streets of New Orleans. This is the French Quarter, where everybody goes out. And so it was obviously very graphic. He had also gotten out and started shooting at people, right? But quickly, again, this was labeled by a terrorist attack by ISIS. And then we have to look at the different timeline of this, because we have the Trump administration that's coming in, which is full of Zionists, and Republicans that have been eager to go to war with Iran for a long time. We have the fall of Syria, and we have everything else going on. And on top of that, we've had the other explosion, the Tesla truck explosion, right? So, and both of these guys rented cars from the app, and the same app.
The Toro app, right?
The Toro app, where basically if you have your own car, you can just put it out for people to rent. So that's what it is. And I said that Democrats and Republicans both have accused Iran of wanting to interfere in U.S. elections recently. They've accused Iran of wanting to kill and assassinate Donald Trump. And this is the whole entire big elephant in the room, is just what happened with Mossad, U.S. Intel, and NATO behind the creation of ISIS. And yet, they're so worried about ISIS, yet literally Syria is being taken over by Al-Qaeda offshoots with the blessing, of course, of NATO and the US, and they're entirely backing them, right? And you can see he has the same uniform as Zelensky because they have economic challenges. And I kind of did a deep dive into this, and I'm just going to go through it quickly. His family members and his classmates and neighbors basically said they can't believe that he did this. He was not that kind of guy. This doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have mental health issues and that could do something like this. But what I said earlier, the coincidence is both of these attacks of Vegas bombing with the Tesla Cybertruck and this one use the
Jayme,
Toro
put the tweet
app.
up.
I'm kind of going through it very fast, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But then this is the most important part to me that I think a lot of people are sort of getting their, conspiracy theory on, but it's not conspiratorial. These are facts. This gentleman admitted that he had spent time in Fort Bragg. This is the Psychological Warfare Center. This was created in 1952, and then they renamed it recently Fort Liberty. And it's supposed to be the largest military installations. And it's basically focused on U.S. Army Special Operations Command. And also it has its own airfields, the Pope Field, where the U.S. Air Force stations and operations are happening in the as well as the Simon Army Airfield. So they have all of this together. And this is an interview that he gave. These are court records, actually. He had said, I've been here all my life with the exception of traveling for the military. And so the court records list his employment as active duty with the U.S. Army and his residence at the time as Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And so I just want to, on that one alone, I just want to get you all's thoughts on that, because to me, that is one of the key things that I find really shady, because what we have seen in time and time again in false flag or psychological operations is the connection to the military, the connection to the FBI, and of course the fact that the person is dead and there's no way to get any sort of testimony from that. Before I move on, I want to get your take on that.
You want me to go first, Matt? You got it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we covered this on the Homeless Left. It was last week, the top censor news. This was the story. This is the one, like the Fort Bragg connection is everything. And I wouldn't even call it a coincidence. I would say that because the headquarters of it's the Psychological Operations Group, which you mentioned, which it specializes in psychological warfare. Both of them came from this. This is what you would say if you were running a CIA or FBI operation to create the terrorism, which we know that's the history of the FBI. We know that's what they do. They create the terrorism. They set it up in order to pretend that they stopped it or that they were there. Oh, we got here. We got it. We figured it out. Like you said, Fee, it was like we knew right away it was an ISIS job. It creates the fear, the division, manufactured consent, as Noam Chomsky would say, for the American people, so we can go to that war with Iran. This is exactly who you would choose for those operations. These guys they would be actually hand selected to push these things through in both these places on New Year's Day. I mean, they couldn't have gotten so more obvious about it, because they know we're going to look into it. We're going to see this stuff. How do they defend this? I can't wait for you to show the video of the reporter going in there, the journalist going in there and showing us all the operations that the guy was, it's clearly an ISIS job and all this, he hates America and he's all about ISIS. This is not a coincidence. This operation from this Fort Bragg this is what we need to be looking at. This is pulling the curtain back, and I'm glad we're having these conversations. I just can't believe how could they maneuver around this and pretend that this isn't right in front of our faces right now.
Well, there's two things I got to say to that. Number one, I'm glad that we are having this conversation, but it's kind of interesting because Fiorella and I started the Convo Couch close to 7 years ago. And the videos that really took off for us was we were people on the left talking about Jeffrey Epstein. The video that's most watched on the Convo Couch, aka the Truthwire, is almost 500,000 views. And it was kind of interesting because we had found a whole audience that never really looked at these things before. And now we're looking at them and it's almost plain as day in front of your face. I mean, it's they leave all the trails, they leave all the marks there for us. So I'm glad to see there's a lot more other leftists too as well, homeless leftists or whatever you want to call us, common sense leftists, non-imperial leftists, whatever you want to call us, that look at these things and go, no. I think it was Anya Parampel who made a tweet where it's the two cats and the lasers, and all of a sudden the cat stops looking at the lasers and starts looking at the person shining the lasers and says, and the quotes were like, me now finding out to look at the actual source of the psyops rather than get distracted by what's going on. I think that's kind of great. But the second part of this that really scares me is who's really believing this crap. That there makes me think that there's a main part of the populace, right? And you know, I already see people making excuses for Donald Trump, even though he's going back on his words. I see this worse than Barack Obama. You know, with Barack Obama, they didn't make excuses. They would say, oh, you can't criticize him, right? Like there was kind of that mentality, and they used that to shield Barack Obama from his awful decisions, especially his foreign policy decisions. With Donald Trump, I see more hero worshiping and lifting him up. So for me, what's nervous is that they're going to use this and convince a lot of the population that it is necessary to go to war with Iran and that these are really ISIS attacks. Remember, we had a president in George W. Bush who didn't know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia, and that's the president. So what do most people know? They don't understand what's going on over there. A lot of them still just think 9/11, Muslims, fanaticals, ISIS. We got to go over and we got to fight them over there so they don't come over here like they just did. And that's what they're selling. And unfortunately, I think they're going to sell it.
The second part is actually one of it actually made everything so much more obvious. I mean, if you buy this, I don't know what to tell you. I titled it "The Lululemon Zionist Disrupts the Crime Scene" to prove that the Muslims did it, because that's essentially what they're trying to get us to believe. So let's go and look at this video. But before we look at it, Jayme, I just kind of want to give my thoughts. This is Jenny Tare. She's a reporter for the New York Post. She's a raging Zionist. She has family in Israel. Okay. And so she magically somehow was able to access Shamsuddin Jabbar's place, where they found an open Quran and a bomb-making station, proving, of course, that he is an ISIS terrorist that hates America, and you know, they're gonna impose Sharia law, and it's gonna be this whole thing. And to me, this is worse than Bibi's fake Hamas hospital tunnels, because what we saw was, it was so fake. And to me, this is worse because you have this lady coming in yoga pants, and like, she's just, look, everything is laid out perfectly there for everybody to see. This is a crime scene. This is evidence. How does that? I don't understand. Usually when there's a crime scene, you have the yellow tape. You're not allowed to come in, right? This is going to disrupt. It's going to tamper the evidence. Like, I'm a crime. What is it? Crimes podcast.
You like to watch whatchamacallit, crime.
Criminal Minds.
No, what's that stuff called? You and Misty Winston are into that crap. True crime.
Yeah, true crime
stuff.
Yeah,
so
this is a no-no. Okay,
listen, people are going to buy this. They're going to say, "Oh, he was radicalized. He was radicalized. He was radicalized." And I will bet you this much: I haven't seen this full thing yet. But if it's worse than the whole Syrian prisoner thing, where they came in and they saw the prisoner, they're going to let the reporter go in right around and just wake up a prisoner. Remember that whole thing? And they had to retract on it in Assad's prison. And some guy wakes up going, completely cleaned and manicured with a nice haircut. And
it's worse. It's worse.
It's worse. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, let's watch it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
And we'll hear your thoughts after. So, Jayme, let's go ahead and play the video and we'll get your thoughts after.
We're here inside the New Orleans terrorist home. You can see that it's been clearly destroyed, the door at least, from the FBI raid yesterday. But if we walk through the home, we see some signs of what he was up to. He had this work area here, lots of different chemicals splayed around, and different electronics. This is, again, a work setup. Left receipts, just very unkempt in here. If we go over here, actually, you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here, which seems to be a lot of chemicals. Again, just left in disarray. There's a bedroom back here, and his, what appears to be his collection of religious materials, his Qurans, an open Quran with a passage there, as well as even the Bible here, but mostly books on Islam, and his prayer rug just to the left of me here. And if we go back, there's another bedroom here. You can see he left all these belongings, contact lenses, personal belongings, bathroom. This seems to be some sort of workspace, again, with other chemicals here. The light's still on, some kind of station set up here. We're not really sure what that was for, in, you know, what we can assume was also a bedroom. You can see clothes left here, and just a sign that someone was here up until those last few moments when neighbors said he left just before the New Year's holiday, saying he was done with his lease, it was up, and he was on his way to New Orleans where he would live there. Didn't take any furniture because he said his new home would be furnished. That's all we know so far.
Okay, so your thoughts.
The deep state knows their audience. They understand who they are, right? They're selling their holy war, and that's what they're going to do. And unfortunately, it gets back to the first thing we were talking about before. Remember, Matt, with the whole dumbing down of education, and people, they don't teach people, they don't teach kids in school to think for themselves. It's not even exactly what they teach them. The fact that they don't teach them to think for themselves, they can pull these things off. You know what I mean? Cameras are everywhere now. They understand that's how people learn. They don't read as much. So this, for them, is going to be as effective as possible, right? They've already justified what went on in Syria. I mean, nobody's talking about this, but that was a coup that just took place. And like I said, I went to go get a cup of coffee. I came back and Syria fell. It happened so fast. And people have they've moved on. They moved on. So a lot of people are just going to repeat the rhetoric. This guy was radicalized. He's Islam. Look, the Torah was out there. We saw it. Not even questioning the fact that they're setting this up, that this is all staged, and they're selling you their holy war.
Yeah. This is definitely performance art. We can clearly see it. This Jenny Tarr, she is auditioning to be the next Clarissa Ward on CNN. She's going through the playbook, the theater, the presentation, and you know, because we can see it, we know that it's like she's walking into a set designer's, you know, kind of a creation, and like, here's where where this is, and the chemicals are left over right here. I mean, she's literally going through the same playbook that CNN puts Clarissa Ward through, and they don't get fired when they get called out. They get promoted. They get to do it again and again and again. And then now you got this new one, and she's younger, and she's going to get that even younger audience. We got to get that younger audience, put the yoga pants on her and make her look cool and hip, and like, and really attract that audience that's not going to pay attention to the fact that this whole thing was set designed. It's like a Hollywood set. And it's like, oh, behind the scenes, look at how we put this together. Look how we get it ready. We're giving you guys that first inside look. So we can see it. Like you said, Craig, it's that this younger generation does not, for some reason, they just aren't using the critical thinking skills to see this. So she's only going to get elevated from this. She's only going to get more opportunity from this performance that we're watching. And it's really sad because we can see it, but how many people are not seeing this? It's sad. This is where journalism has come to. This is journalism. This is insane. This is like what? This is the opposite of journalism, what we're watching here. It's all performance art. That's all I got to say.
I just want to back this up, though, with who she is, because everything you guys said is true. I do think more people that are in our circles are seeing it, but you're right. I mean, people that are outside of the political like spectrum, normies, they might buy into it, especially they already have a bias against Iran, against Muslims. So they know who their target audience is. It's Christians, it's conservatives, it's anybody that thinks we need to spread democracy in Iran, all sorts of those things, right? That also has some of the liberals in there. But Jenny Terror said that she has family in Israel. She spent the first minute of 2024, that her family there spent the first minutes of 2024 running to a bomb shelter. She tweeted that Israel is facing attacks from Yemen. She also has talked about her grandpa, who would have been 100 years old in 2023. He moved to Israel, and that's her hero. So she has ties to Israel. She said that Zionism is a key tenet of Judaism, meaning it is a huge part of it, a huge component of it. And she said it is the belief that we have the right to self-determination in our ancestral homeland, Israel. So all her tweets have been focused on supporting Israel. She even has the Star of David on her Twitter. But she has covered a lot of the immigration thing, of the Venezuelan gangs and all these crazy people coming through the border. And these things are connected, because now what's being said, y'all, is that there's going to be, there are actual bombs, weapons being smuggled across the border. And that is coming from Iran. So we're going to talk about that in a second. And the last part that, well, one of the, I think I have two more parts. The other part of this is the other story that I don't think is coincidental, right? We all probably, you all have talked about it. That story about Matthew Livelsberger, who died, is the suspect that died in the Tesla truck explosion. He committed suicide, and there's so many theories about him, but he was found with a picture that dates back to, I believe, 2016. He was wearing a Ukrainian nationalist Nazi slogan that said Slava Ukraini, which was, of course, popularized by Stepan Bandera. And he had an ex-wife. He had a wife that they were getting divorced, and he had an ex-girlfriend. So he had both. And so there's been a lot of talk about his ex-wife and his ex-girlfriend that he was also talking to in the last few days. And allegedly, his wife broke up with him days before he committed the act. He left his Colorado Springs home the day after Christmas following an argument. And this guy was also a decorated Green Beret. He was on leave from Germany, and he was stationed at the 10th Special Forces Group. He also had done some time at Fort Bragg. Again, how is this coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence in 2025 when it comes to politics, when it comes to psyops. I'm sorry, I just don't. And again, the Turo connection, you have that as well. And I wanted to point this out because I forgot to mention this about the earlier story, right? It is a lot like the Luigi Mangione story that Pasta has been obsessed with, because you're finding the Quran, you're finding all of these things completely laid out. Now, with this guy, Livelsberger, there was also a manifesto that was left. He somehow left these messages for people to find. And these messages laid out so many things. And one of the things he said is, he said that we in the United States are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. And he started talking about the drones that were seen in the sky, saying that they were Chinese weapons. He did the whole China's going to come in and do this. And he laid out all of his thoughts. He sent out an email. And then he also said in several other notes and messages that Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? Why did I personally do it now? I need to cleanse my mind, the brothers I've lost, and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. And he said, it's time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. What we have been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China in the East Coast. But throughout history, only the US and China have had this capacity. So he sent this email to this retired soldier named Sam Shoemate. And Sam Shoemate was also in a podcast where he laid all of this out. So I find all of this extremely, extremely odd. And if you haven't seen the tweets, I wrote out basically everything he said. And there's just a lot more that's been talked about this. But I want to get you guys' thoughts on specifically what do you make of his manifesto? Because to me, just as I find odd that the Quran was turned to the page of whatever Sharia law or whatever they found it on, I find it very odd that this guy also now suddenly they discover that he had these deep thoughts about the state of affairs in the US. And look, I don't put it past people in the military to have a breakdown. PTSD exists. We know that people that go in and fight for the US military industrial complex lose a lot, including their mental sanity. They have PTSD. This is very common. They commit suicide all the time. But outside of that, we can't ignore everything else that we have seen here. And his thoughts, the way he wrote them out to me, seem a little bit too perfect for what we're talking about here. I mean, he's talking about these drones that people have been asking a lot of questions about. I find all of this just very shady, and none of it makes any sense unless this is like some sort of related psyop. And what does this do other than, of course, pinpoint to China? Now we're seeing the other aspect: China, Iran, and the border crisis, which is the next thing I'll talk about, right? So I think they got all of their bases here covered. What do you all think?
Good, man.
So we never see manifestos released where it's the FBI and CIA incriminated, ever. They never release that. So that's the thing we look at, right? And now you brought up Luigi, and we've had this discussion, Craig. I know we've talked about the why do you compliment? He compliments the FBI. You're doing a great job. So, but back to the Fort Braggs. You got these guys that are learning psychological warfare. They're educated in it. Yet the manifesto never says this is the problem. He's putting it to China's the problem. So we're ready to set up this operation. So he is a victim of the thing that he learned about. So we can't take these manifestos seriously, especially because they get released to the public. I mean, the ones that they keep secret, those are the ones we got to look at. Those are like, what are you hiding from us? But when pages and pages get released, it's because there's some sort of, this public consent we need to get people on board with and pretend that, oh, they're calling it out. Well, they never call out the FBI or CIA in these manifestos. So that's what I look for first. And like, I agree with you, Fee. There's no coincidences in 2025.
Well, it is kind of odd too as well. Somebody put in the chat that, why does it not surprise me that this isolated situation supposedly is going to lead to a war blaming Iran? I mean, we can't forget about the guy who was a congressional member, Matt, that we played on one of our shows. He says that Iran has a mothership of drones, right?
Yep.
Like he's painting the picture of Independence Day. It's the mothership. We got to go in there. We got to disable the mothership. And it's everything too as well. When you see all these people, there's this guy out there right now named Sean Ryan, right? He's ex-CIA, ex-SEAL, and he's talking for him. And I hope this will lead into the next part. And these guys are all ops. Ian Carroll, somebody mentioned, he's an op. Mike Benz, he's an op. I mean, these guys are either ops or at the very worst useful idiots because they're out there saying, well, we got to vote for Donald Trump. He's the lone guy at the end of the day. It's where they try to lead you. I mean, with Mike Benz, it was talking about false narratives about the Brazilian election. He was saying that people were getting on trouble online for looking into mail-in ballots with Brazil. I said, well, the only problem is there are no ballots in Brazil, and there's definitely no mail-in ballots. These guys keep exposing themselves, and then he's on stage with Jack Posobiec at the Maha rally trying to tell you to vote for Donald Trump, right? I mean, so we have to be careful. I mean, this Sean Ryan guy, fam, who's the one who was on Rogan recently, was saying that the Taliban is making fake passports, sending people over to Central and Latin America, and then moving them up the border. Listen, for what they're trying to say. And it's not like this, they say open border. No, they still got to go through checkpoints and all these other things. They're not going to bring in bombs and all this stuff and get by and walk past a bunch of security agencies. That's what they want you to believe. They're not going to bring in like suitcases of fentanyl, you know what I'm saying, that are killing all these people. These are mass quantities of things that have to come in. And at the end of the day, it just seems like it's psyops from the CIA and the FBI doing what they're normally doing and then trying to blame somebody else so they can justify what they need to their puppet masters. Another war with either China or Iran.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Sean Ryan, because this is exactly the video I'm going to show. Jayme, it starts at 1:55, but before you show it, I just want to read what I'm talking about here, because this brings it all full circle now, right? So we talk about the border crisis. We talk about this obsession on the border and these gangs coming in, and they have been, even Trump a few months ago, before he won the election, talked about, you know, terrorists coming in, and the whole right has been fear mongering about this. And so this guy is saying that there's going to be these weapons smuggled in. And I want you guys to listen to what he says. But I said the ISIS terror attack in New Orleans, and quote, in ISIS, right? Accusations that Iran tried to kill Trump, Israel, NATO, Syrian coup, the incoming most Zionist administration, and the intelligence officials claiming Iranian bombs are being smuggled via the border, is going to equal more war and expanding the surveillance state. That is what's happening here.
Thing, fam?
Sure.
Really quickly, and Matt, fam, I want you guys to pay attention to this. You can always, these guys will always have tells because they're reading a script. The thing that Sean Ryan got me is he goes, well, the first thing they're supposed to do is they're coming in here to vote. Like, he tried to just slip that in there. And we keep saying this all the time. And this is what I asked Vivek Ramaswamy when he ran away from me faster than shit through a tin horn. I said, do you think all these religious people that are coming across the border are going to automatically vote for the Democrats, especially with their attitude towards gay people in the LGBTQI community? Well, you know, they are coming in with American values and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, is there a contract that they have to sign that says, we'll let you in, you vote for us? Because surely there would be a contract or something. What is the process in which they're doing these things? But the fact that they can throw this stupid shit out there, because that's an important thing moving forward. They want the Republicans to think that immigrants are stealing their elections so they can put you on the digital grid. That's what fucking digital IDs are for. This is something Catherine Austin Fitz talks about all the time. This is what they're doing. And Sean Ryan gives it away right there because he's just reading a script.
So, Jayme, let's play at 1:55 or about that time, and we'll stop it at 3:28. I'll remind you.
Iranian-made man pads, so surface-to-air missiles, had come across the border. We had the location and everything else. Well, Doc, that's what he goes by, Doc Chambers, he put this out on a podcast, and I was very emphatic, like, this is not stuff that I like to put on social media. I'm an intel guy by trade. This stuff is not for social media consumption. We got this to Secret Service. We did the whole gamut and got everything pushed to them, and that's why Trump was pushing a lot of this stuff out when he was, because we had told the Secret Service and they had the reporting and everything else. But we have not, to my knowledge, have not recovered those man pads. Now, I'm not privy to that, but what I do know we have done is we have apprehended the couriers on a second run of theirs, and we have local law enforcement got together with federal law enforcement and rolled up the safe house in, I will not say that on this show, but they rolled up the safe house where it was, and we have since identified what that issue was on the border.
Now, let me just, where did they come through?
They came through an actual point of entry, in a legal point of entry along the border. I'd have to pull up the original reporting, but we had the actual.
So we now have Iranian missiles. Who knows how many inside the United States?
That is not something you're going to see in a lot of places. Like I said, I didn't even want to talk about it. It was one of those things where I was just amplifying what he was putting out already, because I was like, man, I don't know about putting this out. But it was something we found was pertinent, because at the time, Trump was still campaigning. He was flying around, and there was the reports were their intent was to take down Trump's airplane. So at the time, Secret Service switched things up a bit,
right.
and allegedly, from what I've told, they started flying him
We
around.
were
to charge.
more.
Allegedly,
No,
from what I'm told.
fam.
Okay,
No. I mean,
Pasta, you're dying to say
blaming
something.
Iranians, come on. You buy this shit? This is the problem, fam. They get this freaking G.I. Joe mentality of the United States population that would believe this shit. And once again, selling that Donald Trump is the outsider again.
So yeah, you got two things here, right? The Israeli, the attempts that Iran was trying to assassinate Trump, the election interference at the border, and then you have, of course, these weapons being smuggled via the border. Matt, what's your take on this? I mean, how ridiculous is it?
Oh my gosh.
The Iranian mothership, Matt.
It is the mothership is coming. It is, yes, this is the Independence Day scenario. We got to get the team together, get a good Bill Pullman speech ready for Trump, right? We got to take on this is
today is our Independence Day.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's so sickening to watch because it's like all the verbiage is so well put together because it triggers that right-wing crowd. It triggers that, especially the ones that the populists that have been like, no, we're against the deep state. We're gonna oh, Trump, he's got a plan, back to the 5D chess. And you got this Iran's trying to kill Trump. See, Trump knows that's not true. I think that's the most infuriating part. A lot of these guys probably believe the Iran stuff. Does Trump really believe it? He knows he wasn't being killed by Iran. So he's going along with this. It's not 5D chess. He's just captured. That's it. There's no way around this. We're manufacturing consent for war with Iran. That's what this is. And they're getting the people on Twitter that are like, oh, we're off the grid. We're getting intel here that the general public doesn't get access to. And it's just building up more and more consent. Manufacturing consent, manufacturing paranoia. That's the other part of the manufacturing. And so we're sitting here going, how can people buy this garbage? I don't know. It's very well done. I mean, he's very. I would be convinced if I was a MAGA. I checked the box for Trump. I'm watching this. I'm going, oh, we got to expose this. Oh, it's too deep for social media. Won't even post it on social media. It's pretty wild that, but people are falling for this for sure.
They're smuggling missiles in to shoot down Trump's jet from the inside of the United States. Look, I got a little clip here too I wanted to bring to as well, fam, why you had the whole Sean Ryan thing going on, because I mean, this guy looks like, he does look like the typical Joe Rogan guest, ex-military, MMA fighter style guy. And then Joe, really needs Joe Rogan needs to take his head out of his ass. I mean, he has just been, I know I got friends close that love Joe and respect Joe, but enough is enough with this guy. When he had Donald Trump in front of him, he didn't ask him hardly one serious question. One of the viral clips that caught on for Joe Rogan a couple of years ago was when Joe was talking about the family separation policy at the border. And Joe Rogan said, when you want to take a child away from his mother, when the mother's screaming, hey, we don't want you on your team if you're going to be that much of an asshole that you're going to go along with this. And now you have the man who hired the guy who implemented that program right in front of you, and you don't ask him a question about that? I mean, I don't know where he's gone and whatnot. But fam and Matt, here's something I want to point out, because in this clip with Sean Ryan, all right, so the guy he was talking to was talking about Iran's doing this. Well, in this clip, he's talking about the Taliban doing this. Just listen to a little bit of this. And of course, they'll slip out, oh, they're really coming here to vote. That will come in. We'll listen to a little bit of this. But you want to hear more make-believe? Listen to this shit.
I started digging deep, and I teamed up with the former CA targeter, Sarah Adams, and then a really good friend of mine, Scott Mann. We went over to Vienna to interview this guy, Ahmad Massoud, who's the leader, the commander of the Northern Alliance out there. That's like the resistance. It's kind of fighting the Taliban. The Taliban pretty much took over government in Afghanistan. And
I saw the parade.
Yeah.
With
all our shit that we left there.
Crazy.
Yeah, man. So got a bunch of intel from Massoud and still kind of looping all the way back around to the southern border. I mean, so once Taliban took control of all of our shit. I mean, this could go on for a while, but so now what they're doing is they have the passport office over there just making legitimate passports to there's 21 terrorist organizations over there training. Hamza bin
21.
Laden, who we were told was killed, is actually fucking alive, and he's marrying into all these other terrorist networks. So he married Mullah Omar's daughter. He married who else? He married into all these different terrorist networks. And so these guys used to be like competitors, kind of, just like the UFO guys. They all hate each other, but they all have the one common theme, like disclosure. These guys, the one common thing is, let's go take over the Western world. So he is basically Hamza bin Laden is married into all these terrorist organizations. Now they all have one common goal: to come over to, the Western world and ruin our way of life. And so what they're doing is they're funneling as many of these terrorists into the passport office, creating them legitimate, real passports. And then they sprinkle them, they get them flights into all over South Central America. And then they funnel them up through the Darien Gap into the US. And so, there is zero, I don't give a fuck what the FBI or any of these people are saying. There is zero way to track how many of these fuckers have come in to the US. And so, what we're going to see is like October 7th style attacks, like we just saw in Israel and in the mall in Russia. And everybody's like, oh, this, well,
do you
why
think
hasn't
this
it happened
is
yet?
by design?
By design,
like the leaving the border porous, allowing these people to come in.
Absolutely, I think it's by design. I mean, they basically told Border Patrol, stand down. Like, do not do your fucking job. We're going to blast you. I mean, remember the guy on the horse that they said was whipping people, and it wound up being like the reins of the horse? I mean, I think it's by design, from the government, but I think that the government is more incompetent than it's ever been before. And I think they have one common goal, and that I think the goal is voting. They want them to vote, but I don't think they're competent enough to realize the death and destruction and the other repercussions that we're going to face by keeping that border open, because they don't have anybody, that they don't have anybody with any experience.
I'm sorry, but there's only so much I can take before I start getting completely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the shit they're pushing it. And Joe Rogan, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Like, Joe, what are you doing? Take your head out of your ass. This guy, some people say, is the guy Mossad? Where's he coming from? Is he, what I'm saying? He's CIA, he even mentioned he worked for the CIA. Their goal is voting, he says too, as well. But, they're joined together, the 21 radical groups over there, fam, and they hate us for our freedom, Matt. You know what I'm saying? And here's the thing I put on my tweet, and I just want people to understand, and I'll hand it over to you guys too as well. Putting all this BS aside, they're not terrorists. It's called blowback, right? We're the ones with 1,000 bases bombing everybody all over the place. If these people were really choosing to come over here and attack us and kill us, they're not doing it because of our way, our life, or for our freedom. We're doing it because we've been killing their family members over there, and it's blowback. If in fact they even are doing it, I think they're just doing all this stuff and trying to manufacture consent to go in crazy wars, and Donald Trump is their guy for that.
Yeah, they're not that. It's not happening though, Pasta, because we even have a hard time getting Iran to go after Israel. We have a hard time with what the entire region itself getting the resistance to get together to fight Israel. They have zero desire to come into the United States. As you mentioned, the majority of these countries are more conservative. They have zero desire to come in and adopt any sort of social life that exists in the United States. This is precisely why the United States wants to invade Iran, and they're using the mechanism of women's rights, the same thing that they did in Afghanistan, to try to talk and focus about the headscarf when it's not even a huge thing. And again, Iran has a non-secular government because of our own intervention in the first place. And if anybody created fake passports, fake identities, it's been the intelligence apparatus of the United States. So I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to say this without any evidence. There's no evidence. They're literally just spewing off a bunch of things that are completely evidence free because it aligns with the whole idea and the move. And this is what this whole section's been about, to manufacture consent for war with Iran, to manufacture consent for intervention once again in the Middle East. And what's happening right now, if there was any sort of semblance to the honesty, the United States would not be behind Syria's fall, because the people in Syria right now, HTS and all of these offshoot groups, are literal Al-Qaeda offshoots. So what we're talking about is this idea that these people are going to come in. No, they're not going to come in. We helped create them. We helped bring them into power. Their whole focus is pretty much in the region over there. And this is what Israel has been using to go and kill and genocide Palestinians, to go and coup Syria, to continue expanding into the greater Israel project that they have been wanting to do and has been their call for now decades. And like, to me, it's insane that somebody like Joe Rogan, who's supposed to be this anti-establishment figure, is not pushing back on this. And for me, for a long time, it's signaled that he is most definitely a limited hangout. And that's why you don't see a different point of view. Although he'll sometimes have some anti-imperialists on, there's just the majority of his guests are this type of guests where they're spewing out actual conspiracy theories that are not backed by evidence. You know, you can say the US has a border problem. You can say all of these things without making it up. And it's just enraging, to be honest.
Spook Central, fam. Here a spook, there a spook, everywhere a spook. That's all he does. He allows all these spooks to come on and spew their thing. I couldn't believe it. He was just like, Jesus Christ. Like, you have nothing to push back on. Wait a second. Now, how can they get all that stuff on the border? I mean, you're talking about missiles, right? I mean, it's beyond ridiculous. Matt, I'm sorry for.
Well, can I just add, like, Joe Rogan's style of interviewing is 100% 180 here. This isn't how he conducts his interviews. I love that he brings on all sorts of guests. The problem isn't him having the guest on. He's not interrupting him like he usually would do. Like, he had the Rolling Stone guy on. I don't even think that many months ago, maybe 5-6 months ago. You call him out. You don't just let him ramble on and on. You say, the guy goes, they want to destroy our way of life. The older Joe Rogan would have said, the honest Joe Rogan would have said, what does that mean? What do you mean our way of life? What are they trying to destroy? Can you explain to me what that means?
Yeah.
What is our functioning way of life that is working so well that they want to take down? Let's talk about that. What are you talking about? But instead he's like, oh wow, yeah, Jesus,
like it's an automatic, like it's really happening.
Yeah.
So, oh my God,
it's not the Joe Rogan we're used to. And I have to say it again. We've said this before, Craig. Dr. Shiva was right. He said this. He goes, Joe Rogan's captured. He's giving you the thing just enough to make you go, yeah, he's doing it. And then you see an interview like this and you go, this is 100% captured. He didn't fall asleep this morning. He didn't not get enough sleep the night before. He's not distraught about something else. He's fully there. He's fully present, and he's responding the way he's supposed to respond to get his viewership, to get the viewers to get just as paranoid, just as manufacture consent for more war, and they want to destroy our way of life. They have these passports. They're coming in here. They're coming in our border. We got to get on digital IDs. I think you're 100% right on that. And it's just sad to see it in real time. This is not the Joe Rogan that we should be seeing in this interview. No way.
You just forgot to take his alpha brain, fam. That's it.
Well, that's a wrap on that section, fam.
Well, what? We shouldn't do another section because we're at 1:35, but I think we can just attach this to the other section because we're talking about spooks. We're talking about manufacturing consent. And it is January 6th, and I just have it right there. I put the Fox article up about the 36, because it is January 6th, and they did admit 26 FBI informants were present on January 6th. There are other people who tried to write about this. Jayme, if you can put this article up real quick, I'm going to read just a little bit of it. It says Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz said there were more than 24 confidential human sources, CHS, confidential human sources. I had to go look this article up just to see what that stood for. And a crowd outside the January 6th Capitol in 2021, but only 3 were assigned by the FBI to be present for the event, while stressing that none of the sources were authorized or directed by the Bureau to break the law or encourage others to commit illegal acts, Fox News has learned. Horowitz on Thursday released his highly anticipated report on the FBI's handling of the confidential human sources and intelligence collection efforts in the lead up to the January 6th, 2021 electoral certification. And we can take that down right there. And I also just have the right, fam, Jayme, if you can put up the next one, the tweet with the actual report itself. You can go to it and you can see it right there. Just click on the middle real quick. This is the actual report itself. We determined that of the 26 CHS confidential human sources who were in D.C. on January 6th in connection with the events of January 6th, 4 entered the Capitol during the riot, and an additional 13 entered the restricted area around the Capitol, which was a security perimeter established in preparation for the January 6th electoral certification, and 9 neither entered a restricted area nor entered the Capitol or otherwise engaged in illegal activity. That's enough of that. Okay, none of them were prosecuted to this day. Ray Epps wasn't either. You can take it down. But, I mean, just as we look at this and close up the show and look at it on the surface, you know, the question is this a psyop here, or is this something that happened? I mean, what were they doing there? Why would they have this psyop? I mean, I think this is what Whitney Webb was talking about. She was talking about something's going to happen. They're going to do something. This was it. Because of this situation, they infringed more on our civil liberties, right? They gave themselves more protection, more police at the Capitol Police and stuff, and they were able to distract the whole nation with this crap for some time just by repeating what happened. It was the greatest attack on our Constitution since the Civil War, fam. Your thoughts, psyop or not? And then we'll get Matt's opinion and get the hell on out of here.
I think there's no question that this was a psychological operation because the FBI knew about it ahead of time. Government officials like Nancy Pelosi knew about it ahead of time, and they refused to act. So they basically took advantage of a population, the Trump supporters, that felt cheated, and they managed to do a lot of things in one fell swoop. They managed to discredit the idea of election integrity. They managed to expand the surveillance state. They managed to target any sort of dissidents, whether on the left or right, because these same laws were used to target people on the left as well. And so what you saw was a complete fracturing of many people that had begun on the left to question things. I remember getting told that I was supporting white supremacists because I was saying I was there. This wasn't, a coup attempt. This wasn't what CNN was saying. And so that fractured a lot of these groups. And then on the Trump end, you had them doing what the actual real anti-establishment, anti-imperialist should have done, and really making it about this idea of MAGA and Donald Trump, and not really about the elections, because all of that was completely discounted. Trump didn't really fight for it either. He fought more than Sanders, but eventually, I mean, it wasn't really talked about. The right made it about, the ghost of Hugo Chavez and China and all this other BS. And so what you got was the discrediting of questioning the system while our rights were being taken away. And now, years later, you have people finally saying, oh yeah, the FBI was, they knew about it. It's like, yeah, we told you, but we were so viciously attacked and maligned for basically saying that from the start. And a lot of people during that moment, seeing it on their screens and seeing what was portrayed, and the Congress people scared for their lives, and AOC saying they almost had her killed and all this BS, literally lost it. and we lost a lot of people in Los Angeles. I remember a lot of people lost their brains, just like with COVID and just like with whatever other Psyop that has happened in the last 5 years. We saw people just completely stop questioning the narratives and go back to their safety spot. And then what did that do? Of course, it then allowed Joe Biden to come in and become president. And now we have Donald Trump that's a defanged Donald Trump of sorts. He's not the Trump that was in power at that time. So I think without January 6th happening, we wouldn't be here being given all of these new psyops about Iran, about Syria, about Russia, and all of this that's been happening, because that was meant to start the beginning of the censorship, the beginning of the vilifying anybody that's questioning the status quo, left or right.
Yeah.
Matt,
yeah,
get the last word.
Yeah, I'll say, happy J6, everyone. For sure, this is a moment to look back on 4 years of total psyopness. This is not a question of if it's a psyop or not. We know it was. The only question I have still is how many more than the 26 feds were in there.
Really
we know some reports say up to 200 or more were part of this operation. So, and at the time, look, I didn't know so much about the election issue, whether it was rigged or not. That wasn't the point. The point was we apply principle when we see this. We see protesters out there getting wrongfully, arrested, not having due process. We knew that if it was Bernie that had made it that far, it would be Bernie supporters that were definitely targeted and jailed with no representation. So we knew that, and we were fighting for the rights of the people back then, that we're not getting a fair trial there. And here we are 4 years later, and we still don't have it. And then we have all this proof, and we know Ray apps, and we know all these things. We know all of this. It's not even disputable anymore. But again, it's the PSYOP has worked on half the country, because half the country thinks the other half are deplorable. The other half are garbage, or whatever it is, the terminology they're using to keep us divided. And here we are on this anniversary today with no progress at all, except that we're able to identify this clearer. We're able to see there was election interference. We're able to see even more reason why people should have been out on the streets and be furious about the failed system that we're living in here right now. And the only thing I'm missing today on this 4-year anniversary is I'm waiting for Trump to get on Twitter or get on Truth on his Truth Social and tell us it's time to get the CIA involved in January 6th, and then we'll be totally completed with the PSYOP. And that's it. I'll just leave it with that.
Well, fam, I think you should make a tweet about the reasons why you were saying what happened on January 6th, about civil liberties, about elections, all that stuff. That's what you were saying was great. You gave us a few reasons. I think that would be awesome. And I also want to say that while you have people, those 26 agents that were, those CHSs that they called them, the set 26 feds, none of them, they said clearly, were ever charged or got in trouble. Some of them went into the Capitol. Some of them went into the restricted area. But there's also a bunch of other people who were there on the Capitol that day that are still in jail. And they are political prisoners, whether you like it or not. The only problem is, and I love some of the work that Kara Castronova does on this, and our friend Corinne forever going and covering these J6 trials, is that I think if you would find a way for those people, that if they would have gotten on, and they paid attention to Julian Assange, but if they paid attention to people like Mumia and Leonard Peltier and then joined forces that way, if they would find themselves to say, okay, maybe Mumia was not really what we were told he was, and join those movements, and those movements join together about release all political prisoners, we might have movement. But until then, we're still stuck like Chuck, because despite what we've talked about this whole show, the ruling class still has the people divided. That's it for today, guys. I'm Craig Pasta Jardula. We got Matt Weinglass, Fiorella Isabel. This is the Truthwire. We got some love from Big John over in the Rubble. Keep fighting, guys. Thank you so much for everything you all do. All the links down below are to help us out. Independent media, the first show for us in 2025. Happy January 6th anniversary. We'll see you soon. That's it. Is it Truth Out, or we're not doing that this time?
We're not doing Truth Out,
No
but
Truth
you
Out.
just did it. So let's stick with that.
We didn't come
We'll
up with
think
a
of something,
code.
guys.
We'll think of something. Peace out, everybody.
Right.